Conclusion. All right, so that's it. That's what I had to say. There's a challenge to writing any nonfiction book, which is how in-depth you go. Do you give all the nuance and caveats, or do you stick to the generalities? I'd say for this book, and for most beginner books I write, I've stayed mostly with the generalities, and maybe given a hint of the nuance and caveats. All of this is much more complex than I've made it seem. I could go through and double the size of this book just by writing out all the arguments I can envision people making against what I've said here. But I think that would overwhelm a writer at the stage of development that this book is aimed at. So as you continue on, I expect you will form your own opinions, and they will vary some from what I've said here. Read through my blog a little, and you'll see I've done the same with advice I'm given. For example, I was at a conference earlier this year where the advice was not to advertise until your third book in your series is out. And I wrote a blog post about how I disagreed with that advice. Because when you publish a book and see no sales, it can be soul-crushing. You labored over this book, and now, nothing. At the same time, the real advice should be to hold off on advertising as long as you possibly can. I figure I am a good enough writer that people will read what I have available. But I am not so good that they'll wait 2 years for my next book. Which means that every reader I convince to buy my books is pretty much only going to buy what I have available now. And again, I'm simplifying some here. That means that if I get someone to buy my books when I have 3 out, they'll read 3 books by me. If I get them to buy my books when I have 6 out, they'll buy 6 from me. Well, if it costs the same amount to advertise when I have 3 books as it does to advertise when I have 6, then doesn't it make sense to hold off until 6 or 8 or 9? No one does that, though. It's ideal, but it's not going to happen. So take the advice I've given here as a jumping off point, as something to sit with and then argue against. If you follow what I've said here, you'll be off to a good start. But as you move forward in your writing career, you are going to need to pivot and adjust to meet your own personal needs. Every writer's career is unique. There are some generalities that are true for most, but we each need to make our own choices based on our own circumstances. The one thing I will emphasize here is that being a writer is a long and complex journey. If you succeed right out of the gate, congratulations. But in some ways, that makes it even harder, because starting at the top, there's only one way to go. If you don't succeed right away, that's okay too. The only way you are going to fail at this is if you quit. And if you do, so what? Selling your writing and having others judge it and put a value on it is not for everyone. I still haven't quite figured out why I write. I think part of it is that it hasn't been easy for me. But I feel no compelling need to write novels that other people read. I will always be a storyteller in my own head. It's how I entertain myself when I'm bored. But that doesn't mean I have to write for an audience, or that I have to sell what I write. Same goes for you. So if you're not happy with writing to make money, then don't do it. But if that's what you want, to write stories, have people read them, and be paid for it, then the only person who can stop you from achieving that is you. Don't quit. Don't give up. If this is what you really want, then make it happen, one way or the other.